Hi everyone! I've fallen a little behind with my YouTube channel these last few weeks, so I thought I'd start my 2018 hair by bringing you a relatively intermediate inspired hair idea. This is based upon the character Torvi from the History Channel show Vikings, and I started by micro-crimping all of my hair off screen first. This is obviously an optional step, but since I don't have miles of additional extensions at my disposal, I thought that by doing this I could pump up the volume of my natural hair instead, thus negating the need for clip-ins. I also made sure to detangle everything thoroughly and I set it into a middle parting just for now, and then using my fingers I made a horizontal half divide, just as I would if I were making a half ponytail. It's best to make sure that the line itself extends directly over the crown, and it should also be relatively neat and straight, because if it isn't, the finished braid work might look lopsided. It's definitely worth it to go back in with a comb and a mirror to tidy any kinks in the parting. And for now I'm clipping the top half up so that I can secure the back away with a clip. Now there are 5 separate panels along the front of the head, and each one will be braided back into the upstyle, but for now I'm going to separate them out first. I find that by carving them in before styling I can see things more clearly. This will just ensure that I have an uber amount of control with my spacing and less miscalculation with sectioning. There's one in the very center, and then the 2 coming off the sides of the middle are a little less wide, and these lines are just ever so slightly angled to accommodate the curves at my temples, and the following 2, the ones above my ears, are pretty typical in their Viking style shape, but they're also not as important as the top 3, at least not yet. I'll be using some lightweight gel throughout the braiding, and I'll do this by running small amounts of product through each section. This helps me with the frizzies around my face, but it also adds some additional grip. And instead of starting in the middle panel, I'll be doing the 2 on either side of it first. I'm using a Dutch braid pattern, which basically means I'm folding the strands under one another, which creates the 3D pop-up effect. And since these spaces are so small, I'm pulling all the additional hair into the center instead of the sides. So it becomes fold right under the middle, then left under, new hair into the center, and repeat. Once both of these braids were finished, I turn my attention to the top panel, but first I'm going to extend it further back onto my head. So I'm temporarily clipping it up and releasing the lower half of hair. Using my fingers again, I made another small horizontal divide right below it, and hopefully you can see that it extends from the outer corners of both of the braids on the sides. When I've got a straight line, I once again tied up the lower half of hair and began to braid. And this too is a Dutch braid, and since the space is wider, I'm treating it like any other Dutch braid by bringing the additional hair into either side strand. As always, I'll leave my Braid Dictionary video in the description below just in case you need a refresher or a more drawn-out explanation. There are only 2 braids left. At this point, I've pulled down all my remaining hair and split it into 2 with a half over each shoulder. These 2 are also Dutch braids, and for the first few stitches, it's like any other Viking side panel you've seen me do. Hair is brought into both strands and folded under one another. But once it reaches the ear, the pattern shifts into a Dutch lace braid that curves along the sides of the head and down to the nape of the neck. This means you're still weaving your strands under one another, but you're only bringing new hair into the bottom strand, which is the one closest to your hairline all the way around. This will make certain that you'll have a free edge to tuck your ends into once the pinning begins. And I'm fast forwarding here, but obviously you'll need to repeat the same thing on the other side of your head. The technical part is basically over, so now it's on to the more enjoyable portion of bringing it all together. As you can see, I pushed my Dutch lace braids over my shoulders and laid the other 3 directly between them. I'm starting with these guys by pinning them into a solid piece down the back of my head. I'll secure them at the top and then again right at the occipital. This will keep them from swinging around or moving out of place. The ends of these braids get wrapped around 2 fingers and pinned up and under. I suppose that if your hair is a little longer than mine, you could opt to make a regular bun here instead. The lace braids are drawn sideways across the nape of the neck. The idea is that the braids at the bottom of this style rest horizontally, while the ones in the center contrast by resting vertically. So the leftover tails from your lace braids can either be folded back and forth sideways a few times, but since my ends weren't super long, I've chosen to lift them up and pin them vertically. Any little bits that were left were tucked under the original 3. And with that, I was finished. I went back in with hairspray and a few extra pins, but that was all. What I like about this look is that if you do it tightly enough, it can last for a few days. And when I first saw it on the actress, it reminded me of a Viking take on a traditionally classic upstyle look, which I sort of like too. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the style today, and if you did, throw me a thumbs up or leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. But until next time, have fun and keep braiding. Bye!